Okay, we are back on the Mobile Mailbox Money podcast here, episode 35 with Laird Miller. Here have brought on multiple real estate investors, niche market specialists, developers, artificial intelligence individuals, trades individuals that have grown their businesses to multi-millions of dollars. And I'm here today with Laird Miller. Laird, appreciate having you on the channel today. Maybe if you could just introduce yourself for the viewers that don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, really appreciate being here. Especially at my age, I don't get a chance to talk about real estate in depth with a lot of kids. So I really, enjoy spending the time to dig into it and see what's going on. But for everyone watching, my name is Laird Miller. I'm 20 years old. I go to college in Florida, but I'm from Arizona. And I built Rental Calc AI, which is an AI integrated rental real estate analysis software. It analyzes rental properties and tells you how they perform over time. Not only that, but I'm also sort of an apprentice under the CEO of a development company in Arizona and Texas. And I'm learning a lot doing work for him as well.
Absolutely. To be as educated and in rooms of influence at the age of 20, is a tough thing to do. And your fruits, I'm sure, will show from your labor. Met you at Arizona Real Estate Investors Association. So you're active out there meeting individuals. Maybe for the people that are your age, what kind of words of encouragement could you provide to them in your journey, maybe how it's been and how you've overcome some challenges?
Yeah, I think probably the best advice that I could give to anyone, especially my age, is to kind of do your best to tune out the noise. There's a lot of noise that's circling around kids with my age, on TikTok, Instagram. They see things that, really kind of put out there to distract them from being the best that they can. And I think for someone to really grow, especially in the real estate world, you really got to get out there and you really got to try things and experiment with things. And in the real estate world, I think a lot of it's based on experience, and just gaining that experience is really key.
Getting out and rubbing shoulders with other seasoned professionals, is of utmost importance. We can only do so much on our own, and then we end up just spinning our wheels, maybe stuck in a corner or whatever it may be. To hit that next plateau, you got to get out there and meet people. So I was happy to meet you over at our booth at AZREIA. We actually are the main corporate sponsor now of Arizona Real Estate Investors Association.
That's awesome.
We announced that the other day. Shout out to Mike Del Pre, driving youth as well as seasoned investors to continue in educating on, next level stuff, and to be on the next edge of artificial intelligence and implement that stuff, out in the market is truly life-changing, not only in my life, but also possibly in yours, I'm sure, as you've fulfilled this utility out in the market for the people that you've helped with your case specific program. What were kind of some of the challenges that they had solved with what you have to provide? What would you have to say for that?
I think a big challenge that my software provides, especially now that we've released a version 2, is allowing young investors who don't really know, what to do or where to look or where to go, a route and a path to investing and buying their first rental property. I think that a large portion of kids my age, when they start in real estate, they start in wholesaling. And for those who are watching and don't know what that is, it's where you find typically more rundown properties, buy them at a discount, try to offer cash to get that discount, and then you sell the contract to purchase that property to someone else at a profit spread that you get to keep. And we recognize that, and we said, if these kids are getting into real estate through wholesaling, we should make our calculator, our software, more based on that. So what we're doing is we're allowing people to come onto our site and type in just a market, just Phoenix, Arizona, and it'll pull up the 200 best looking homes that are in that market, and then run an analysis on all of those homes at once to tell you which ones might be undervalued, which ones might need some work done, which ones you can just buy and hold, and which ones, would make the best rental. So I think that's kind of where we're really helping people out, is in that newer space, just getting used to real estate and getting used to seeing the metrics and understanding, what's going on behind a deal.
I think it's tough to know how to talk real estate or search really what you want out in the market, and to have a utility, to be able to do that. And maybe even just for gigs, go out and search other markets where this kind of does it at a super fast pace, to be able to kind of search all around the nation, possibly, if you like, for properties that hit a certain benchmark without a super high level software, to implement artificial intelligence in that aspect. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As you've developed your education and implementation into real estate, how did you shift from being an apprentice under a developer to kind of branching out on your own? Because I think a lot of people sit in that level of comfortability, possibly where they're at, and not try and flex their intelligence, to go off on a certain tangent. What was the decision maker for you to actually go out and see? Did you find a problem? What did that look like?
Yeah, from taking the step of building Rental Calc AI to kind of meeting people and learning more, I think the steps are really just learning. Like, if I have a principle where if there's no work to do, there's always something to learn. So I'll spend hours on YouTube just watching videos of people. What I'm doing right now, actually, now that I'm kind of trying to get more in the development space, is I'm actually watching YouTube videos on how people are building BTR units, and actually watching the construction, watching people, put down slabs, watching people, build up the bones of the houses and whatnot, just to kind of understand and know the process of things. And I think the real reason why I'm doing that is because I watched a podcast of someone who was going over Elon Musk's life. And he said one of the best things that Elon Musk did as a CEO was be really involved in his companies. Like, for example, when he was in Tesla, when they were kind of going down and not doing too well, he would sleep on the factory floor just so he could see the work of the machines being done, be with the engineers, and kind of understand everything that's happening. That way he was the most adverse, well-knowledge person on the team, so he can make changes quickly and effectively. And I think that's kind of where, I excel, especially at such a young age in the real estate world, is I'm able to teach myself in ways that other people weren't able to before. And, with AI, I'll quiz myself with AI and ask it questions, and it's a great teacher as well. I think people, if they want to get ahead, definitely need to be taking advantage of stuff like that. And if you have an idea and you think it's good, first step, always, search it up, Google it, ask AI, hey, is this possible? Hey, is this a good idea? Sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. Like, for example, something that I've been doing recently is I've actually taken a Excel sheet. It's like 8-10 pages, really, really long, full in-depth analysis of a BTR project in Texas, 204 built to rent units. And I've taken that sheet, rebuilt the entire thing in Google Sheets, because in Google Sheets, I can write JavaScript code for it. And what I did is I basically programmed an AI to be able to read the sheet, change values, and easily kind of work with me if I need to understand something or want to do something in that sheet. So just kind of, experimenting, learning, and taking steps, taking action is the real way to meet people. Because then when I go out and go to these events like AZREIA, I'm not just going out and introducing myself and saying, hey, I think what you're doing is cool. I'm going to these events and I'm saying, hey, this is what I've done. This is what I can bring to the table, because everything is a business transaction. Even, meeting people and getting a phone number, you gotta offer something to the table, and being able to do stuff like that puts me up a big amount.
You made a lot of great points. I think the new day and age for being able to attend YouTube University, far before you leave your house, that utility alone will create a lot of new kind of Elon Musk individuals out in the market, because our pace to learn things ends up being, hyper speed. We don't have to go to a physical location or anything like that. And there's seasoned investors, individuals, and people implementing strategies for us to view out on YouTube, and they're wearing cameras and stuff like that, walking you through projects.
Yep.
So that's super cool to hear, and encourage other individuals, to just get curious at the end of the day. Get curious, go look online, instead of doing this doom scroll, they say, go on YouTube and figure out what you're interested in and how you can parlay that stuff into return on investment at the end of the day. And then using that via artificial intelligence to kind of bounce it back and forth, a qualified individual or AI, I see the trajectory. So, super commendable. That's easier said than done. Love every bit of that at the end of the day. Where do you see the next step? Where at 20 years old, what's the 10-year trajectory for, where you're sitting today here in 2026?
I think I can give a pretty good 10-year trajectory of just the rental market and what I'm seeing, because I'll analyze, thousands of homes and just looking at how they perform. And what I really see today is I really see a large market going into this BTR space. And, if you look up build to rent units, you see more and more developments. You see more and more podcasts done. I actually just listened to one by the Bigger Pockets podcast on the progression of BTR and its expansion. And it's huge. And so many people are jumping on this trend to kind of build more and build things effectively, and at the same time make it sort of like a premium community for the younger generation to go in and rent. And I think where this is all stemming from is the degree. A lot of kids are going to school, getting in debt and getting a degree, and the price of a degree is going up and the value of a degree is going down. People want to see more action nowadays. They don't just want a piece of paper. They want to hear about internships or, projects or experience. And I think a lot of kids aren't realizing that, getting in debt. And then when they do end up finding a job, they aren't in a position where they can afford a house. And these BTR communities are kind of exactly what they're looking for. So I see a large rental swing in terms of just the younger generation, my generation, instead of buying more of a renting for the first, 10, 15 years before they're able to put down a down payment and get into a mortgage.
Yeah, I think it was last year's World Economic Forum where Klaus Schwab said that by 2030, they're going to own 30% of residential real estate. And the average American's going to own nothing and be happy. A lot of that is kind of coming true as they fulfill a build to rent, portfolio, kind of writing on the wall. Kind of interesting as Trump the other day passed, or he's trying to pass, to soften the institutional appetite into single family properties.
Mm-hmm.
So all stuff to watch. And, at the end of the day, but is it going to keep investors from fulfilling their strategy? They're going to continue until they can't at the end of the day. So the day that passes or it doesn't, will be a big identifier, I think, for what will happen here for housing, but that's really what's going on. You're seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of that, through the statistics and data that we see here locally in the Valley. Anything else you'd like to add today? How does someone get in contact with you? How has your last couple months been at school? A couple of last closing remarks.
Yeah, absolutely. And before that, I think you're absolutely right. And I think even though there might be things passed to halt the progress of big time investors buying up all the single properties or single residential properties, I think they're going to keep going. And I think the for rent trend is going to continue strong. To contact me, I'll shout out my email. Why not? Laird, Laird .Loera @gmail.com. Always shoot me an email on Instagram at laird.miller. I'll always respond to every DM. And how's school? Honestly, after being home for break and doing stuff over break and over the summer when I'm really getting into things, school is like a vacation. I feel like I'm, on a I feel like I'm at a resort, honestly, here in Florida. It's great. And I'm still doing work and I'm still, pushing myself and everything, but the classes are here nor there for me right now. But don't worry, I still got a 3.98 GPA, so I'm doing good, but it gets boring at times, I'll say.
That's good. Well, hey, it's good to catch up with you. Our sponsor today for this channel is Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. That's a Reg D 506C accredited investment fund providing 10% returns for a 1-year term paid monthly, 12% return for a 3-year term paid quarterly, or a 14% return for a 5-year lockup paid monthly, investing like Warren Buffett. So, Laird, appreciate having you on the channel today.
Yep,
Next time you come into town, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll come introduce you to the influential individuals that I hang out with. So happy to, swap networks. Have a great day, everybody. Go back and view the previous vlogs, the podcasts, the interviews, the traveling cross